A reading from the Holy Gospel according to St. Luke.
Glory to thee, O Lord.
While people were listening to Jesus speak, he proceeded to tell a parable because he was near Jerusalem, and they thought that the kingdom of God would appear there immediately. So he said, a nobleman went off to a distant country to obtain the kingship for himself and then to return. He called 10 of his servants and gave them 10 gold coins and told them, engage in trade with these until I return. His fellow citizens, however, despised him and sent a delegation after him to announce, we do not want this man to be our king. But when he returned after obtaining the kingship, he had the servants called to whom he had given the money to learn what they had gained by trading. The first came forward and said, Sir, your gold coin has earned 10 additional ones. He replied, well done, good servant. You have been faithful in this very small matter. Take charge of 10 cities. Then the second came and reported, your gold coin, sir, has earned 5 more. And to this servant, 2, he said, you take charge of 5 cities. Then the other servant came and said, sir, here is your gold coin. I kept it stored away in a handkerchief, for I was afraid of you, because you are a demanding man. You take up what you did not lay down, and you harvest what you did not plant. He said to him, with your own words, I shall condemn you, you wicked servant. You knew I was a demanding man, taking up what I did not lay down and harvesting what I did not plant. Why did you not put my money into a bank? Then on my return, I would have collected it with interest. And to those standing by, he said, take the gold coin from him and give it to the servant who has 10. But they said to him, sir, he has 10 gold coins. He replied, I tell you, to everyone who has, more will be given. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. Now as for those enemies of mine who did not want me as their king, bring them here and slay them before me. After he had said this, he proceeded on his journey up to Jerusalem. Well, in a fairly lengthy gospel for our Sunday gospels, there's a lot here.
Oh, yeah.
Certainly, first, the most obvious is this master in the story leaves the servants with something to invest, something to work with. And the 2 that multiply the coin by 10 or by 5 are commended, and they are given charge of even more. But the one who says he's afraid of this master because he's a hard man, he gets punished severely because he hasn't invested. I think the lesson here really, Terry, it applies to each of us. Mm-hmm. We're given life. We're given certain abilities, certain talents, and we're called to go out into the world and invest ourselves. Mm-hmm. Be good steward. Use the gifts that God has given us. As the master in the story points out, maybe we're not able to multiply the 1 by 10 or by 5, but at least to invest it to bring interest, to do something, mm-hmm. to use your gifts. I think that's the basic message of this story, is that we have to invest ourselves. We're given that precious gift of life, and we're called to share it and to invest our gift with others. The last part of the story, I think, really is significant because as it sets it up, Christ is on the way to Jerusalem.
Yeah.
In the story, the king is rejected, and the ones who reject him are ultimately punished. In our modern world, in the church or otherwise, people don't like to hear about the judgment.
No.
But Christ is constantly making it very clear. The judgment of those who ignore his message will be very real. In the story, those who rejected the king are ultimately slain. That would be interpreted in modern terms of being a very harsh master. But what I believe Christ is teaching us in sharing this kind of story is that's reality.
Yeah.
Reality's tough.
Yeah.
The truth is wondrous and glorious and full of joy and hope. But it's that two-edged sword. When we ignore the truth, we can't say, well, God's love and God's mercy. What this story illustrates, that there are consequences. Again, I come back to that, what we talked about yesterday. There are consequences to ignoring in the story, the true king. There are consequences. And Christ makes it clear that we don't live in a world where we can ignore the consequences and think we're going to get away with it. Because I think it really comes down to the violation of truth. And, I think both of us like to just go to down-to-earth images, down-to-earth examples.
Yep.
If you or I jumped in our car and just decided, I'm going to ignore the speed limits, I'm going to ignore any kind of safety precautions, I'm just going to put the pedal to the metal and go down the highway as fast as I can, we may not get very far.
That's right.
Before the consequences cause us to maybe die or to have a terrible collision, maybe take other lives. That is reality. We might not like it. We might say, that's not fair. I just want to drive down the road ignoring the laws, and I just want to barrel down the road in my car. I should be free to do that. Well, you may think so, but that's not reality. I know it's not a great analogy.
I think
but
it is.
It's really what Christ is teaching us.
Yep.
We cannot go barreling through life ignoring the laws of the universe, the laws that God has taught us, the morality of our faith. We can get away for a little while, maybe go a few blocks in this mythical car that we're driving, but we're not going to get very far before the consequences catch up to us. That's what Christ is trying to tell us. In the modern age, we don't want to hear it.
No.
And too many people ignore the message of the gospel, ignore Jesus Christ, ignore God in any aspect of his revelation. And they look like they're getting away with it, but ultimately they're in for a devastating crash. And that's what Christ, out of love, is telling us. And that's what parents do out of love. They say, teenage son, no, you can't just go barreling down the road, ignoring the laws and speeding as fast as you can. As teenagers, we may want to do that, but we're supposed to be not teenagers in the world, but we're acting like a world full of teenagers that are wanting to ignore the laws that God has laid down for us. And it's not going to work. And ultimately, Christ says in John's gospel, if you love me, you will keep my laws and not ignore them. So that desire, all of us have had that some level of a rebellious streak in us as little kids or as teenagers. But hopefully we learn that the consequences are something we ultimately want to avoid. But too many people in the world today don't seem to have learned the lessons of this gospel that we've just read.